I'm delighted to be here and thrilled that physical literacy throughout the life course is now translated in Portuguese. More about that later. This lecture is entitled Choosing Physical Activity for Life. That's what physical literacy is all about. Everybody choosing physical activity for life. So as you can see, the lecture title goes on to say the what, why, and how of physical literacy. So when I talk about what, I'm going to focus on the definition and the attributes, and I believe you all have a handout which sets out the definition and the attributes. When we talk about why is it important? Why is it worth thinking about, talking about, and enacting the implications? And I'm going to look at three angles: a very practical angle, very briefly touch on the philosophical angle, and then have a look at the contribution that physical literacy can make to human flourishing. So I've got three particular approaches when I talk about why. Why is it important? Finally, how? My comments here will lay the ground for answering the question, what does physical literacy look like in practice? What are the implications? If we adopt this aspiration, what should we do? Now, I'm going to be fairly brief on that one because Nigel, my colleague who's come with me, is running some workshops the next couple of days for a number of you, and he's going into great detail about the pedagogy and about the implications. So I will just set the scene, really, for what he's going to say. So what is physical literacy to start with? It's a disposition, not a skill, not a capability, a disposition. We are working to develop secure disposition, a secure disposition. It's an informed commitment to physical activity for life, an informed commitment. We know about it and we're committed. It's a rational and enthusiastic involvement in physical activity for life. So that's what I'm talking about. I'm not particularly talking about physical competence. I'm talking about the whole person with this passion for participating and how important that is and what we can do to promote that. Now, my interest in this area arose from the fact that many people in the United Kingdom and around the world were not showing either an informed commitment or enthusiastic involvement. And in addition, sedentary lifestyles were on the rise, distractions, technical distractions, etc. Mental health problems were increasing, a lack of balance in life. And to some extent, in some sectors, perhaps a disproportionate amount of attention was given to the most able. I celebrate the most able. I have been a sportswoman in my history, and I have helped to coach people. But my passion now is to reach everybody. And I believe if we reach everybody, those who have got particular abilities will be developed, be nurtured, and will appear and blossom. Now, I viewed this situation was in no one's interests, and I set about considering if there was support for my view of the value of lifelong participation. I wanted to see if I could find support for what I really strongly believed in. I found support in my study, following my doctoral work, in philosophy. I mentioned that briefly. With my passion and my commitment and this backing, I called on a concept that had been lurking in the background for perhaps 100 years, but never taken up in depth: physical literacy. It had been around. The various articles written about the history of physical literacy, it appears again and again, and then it's dropped. And nobody has really looked into the potential that we could develop from using that concept. And I formulated a definition that is to be understood as an aspiration for everybody. So you have got on your handout, which I'm going to press the knob again. In short, Physical literacy can be described as a disposition to capitalize on the human embodied capabilities, which we all have to some extent or another, wherein the individual has the motivation, the confidence, the physical competence, knowledge and understanding to value and take responsibility for engaging in physical activities for life. So this is a description of this disposition. What does that look like? So shall we see what it looks like, please?
For life.
I'm suggesting that this is what physical literacy looks like. Did you see motivation? Did you see confidence? Did you see physical competence? Did you see knowledge and understanding? Did you see people who were valuing and committed to physical activity, as per the definition? Have another look.
This is physical literacy. The motivation, confidence, physical competence, knowledge and understanding to value and take responsibility for engagement in physical activities .
We believe that it does show the motivation, the enjoyment, the passion, the confidence, a lot of physical competence, knowledge and understanding, and the willingness to take part, the commitment. That's what I and we in IPLA would love to see. More of that from the early years right through until older age. So I hope that gives you a picture. So let's just have another look at the definition, which you've got on your handout. It includes the affective, that's the emotional part, that's the feeling part of motivation and confidence. It includes the physical competence, the physical domain, and it includes an element of knowledge and understanding. So it's more than physical competence. It's the commitment, the affective, and it's also the understanding and the knowledge. Well, that's the first thing to notice about that. Also, if you look at your definition, and this is important, the definition includes where we're going to value and take responsibility for participation. And it includes what we believe are the means to achieve that aspiration. So we believe if you work on confidence, motivation, physical competence, and knowledge and understanding, those are the ways that we can promote choosing physical activity for life. So it's a holistic concept, and the definition includes the means and the end. So that if you unpack the definition, that's what it means. So then on your sheet, you've got the attributes. Now, the attributes answer the question, what does somebody who has a secure disposition, what do they look like? And you'll see that the attributes also cover the affective, the physical, and the cognitive. Motivation to be proactive. That's an attribute of somebody who is making progress on their journey. Confidence in relation to the ability to make progress. They know when they take part, there's a good chance they'll make progress. They move with poise and economy and effectiveness in a wide range of situations. One of the goals of the film was to show a very wide range of activities, far beyond sport, physical activity of all sorts. And there are a huge number of possibilities, and each serves a particular purpose. We're physically active. Some are on the water, some are outside, some are inside, some are on their own, people on their own. So an enormous mixture that you can be involved in. And it talks about thoughtful and sensitive perception in appreciating all aspects of the physical environment. What I'm meaning is that people can use their movement patterns, as mentioned in the book, to relate to sailing, to relate to abseiling, to relate to dance. Then the ability to work independently and with others, in cooperative and competitive. So this person is sensitive to other people, can work with them, can work independently, but can work with them. So we're unpacking the details of the definition. And then on the cognitive side, the ability to identify and articulate the essential qualities that influence the effectiveness of movement. We know about it, we understand about it. We've learned how to reflect on our success and how we can improve. So we understand about the nature of movement. We understand the principles of holistic embodied health, the value that it has in the holistic health. And then rounding it all off, bringing together all three domains, the self-assurance and self-esteem to take responsibility for choosing physical activity for life. And we could watch the video again, and we could have an interesting discussion about where we see people demonstrating those attributes. So that really finishes a little section I've got on what. What is it? Choosing physical activity for life. We have a holistic definition. We have a definition which includes the means and the end. So that's what we're talking about. Developing a secure disposition to choose physical activity for life. So let's move on to why. Why is it valuable? Why is it worth you coming to the lecture, worth you thinking about it, hopefully reading your translation of the book? Why is it important? Why is it valuable to us as human beings? Well, it's not just for fun. It's not just for purely physical health. It's not just to produce athletic stars. And it's not just to realize extrinsic ends, although we can do physical activity in order to reach other ends in itself. Physical activity may be able to help, may be able to make a contribution in those areas. But for me, it's about having the satisfying experience of using an aspect of our human potential. We have an embodied capability. You have musical capabilities, you have emotional capabilities, and there are human capacities, capabilities, and it's very rewarding to build on those potentials. It's good because, in my view, it's an invigorating experience involving the physical activity. It's an invigorating, it's enlivening, inspiring activity. And it's also important because of the way that physical activity can add to the quality of life. And I like to see physical activity really as an end in itself. It's worthwhile to promote physical activity as an end in itself, not as a means to an end. It is a value in itself. Now, as I mentioned before, I'm going to talk about justifying physical literacy from three perspectives. I want to just talk through the handout you've got about the more practical values, which are fairly easy to handle. And I want to just introduce you to my philosophical understanding, to where I got my belief that I was onto something that I felt was valuable in the views of certain philosophers. And then I also want to look at what we mean by human flourishing, and if and how we can argue that physical literacy is valuable to make a contribution to human flourishing. So, if you go to your handout on value, you get your handout on value. This is the practical list here. I hope that you've got that. And I sometimes feel that we need to have simple language, perhaps, to try and argue our case. And so this, if you look more specifically, at the bottom, the value of physical literacy. Develop physical potential and experience the satisfaction of progress and success. That's valuable. That's valuable. To develop potential and to experience realizing that potential. It's valuable because people can grow in self-awareness and self-assurance and strengthen their global self-belief and self-esteem. Self-esteem is absolutely critical in life. And we can develop self-esteem through many avenues, but you can certainly develop self-esteem through participating in physical activity. Another value can come to realize that being active can be rewarding and pleasurable, and you can develop a commitment. So we're making things quite simple. We're not making things complicated, but these are some of the assets, some of the values. It's valuable because it can give you confidence to explore participation in a wide range of activities and widen your life choices. So we've opened another door into the way that you can live your life, you can realize your potential. You can enhance your all-round health and well-being, as I've mentioned. And I'm not only talking about physical well-being, I'm talking about mental well-being and social well-being, emotional well-being. Because we're all of a piece, it does work in that way. And then finally, to realize the importance of taking responsibility for your own well-being and learn to make informed decisions about the kind of physical activities that you want to engage in. So you evaluate life habits and patterns with respect to participation from an informed position. You've got a range of choices. And because this is a lifetime concept, as you age, you change what you can do, what you're interested in, and if you've got the basic confidence, you can move from a situation which is very energetic, very challenging, very risky, to a whole range of other forms of activity. And if I look back at my life, what I have spent my time doing has changed from the age of about 11 to my age now. And I'm still involved in physical activity, but of a somewhat different nature. But I know enough about it, I've got enough confidence to know that I can succeed. Now, at the bottom of the sheet, it says, I judge these to be highly significant values, values that give physical education educational validity, not least in preparation for life beyond school. I think in the early days there was a sort of feeling that, oh, well, she's sort of trying to get physical activity into the school curriculum, trying to argue that it's got academic credibility. I've called it literacy. It sounds sort of academic. I don't want to be in competition with academia. That's another potential you have. I think it has educational validity in its own right as a unique development of human potential. So it's not trying to get in at the back door by making it sound academic, not at all. It's by saying we have this potential, it's a unique potential, and everyone has the right, in my view, to develop that potential. So I just put that in there because I feel passionate that it has educational validity in a more liberal, humanistic education system. And by no means am I trying to get in through the back door. So now take a deep breath. It is exciting when you have a passion and a belief, when you find that other people believe that too. And this is what happened when I was directed to study philosophy. And I was directed to look at monism. And this was because in a lot of countries in the developed world are still viewing the human as made up of the body and the mind. And the body really has just kept going to keep the mind functioning. However, monists believe that we are essentially an integrated whole, and that every aspect of our behavior and our perception is fed into and feeds out into all aspects of our being. And in fact, there's a lot of work now to say that rather than the mind lording it over the body, and that the body is very insignificant, that if we weren't embodied, we actually couldn't develop our cognitive capacities. And a lot of human development depends on embodied action in order to feed cognitive aspects. So in fact, the mind relies on our embodiment for realizing its potential. A lot of very good work in early child development and brain development because of adequate and well-planned and well-executed physical activity. And your embodied contribution to the whole of you carries on throughout the whole of life. And so reading the monism, philosophers talking about monism, tremendous respect for our embodied nature. So it isn't just an also-ran, it's worthy of serious consideration. So we're not inferior. The body is not inferior at all. It's an essential element. Then I looked at existentialism. Sorry about all these long words. But existentialism believes that existence precedes essence, which means that we come into the world without experiences, without knowledge and understanding. And it's through our experiences, our activities, our interaction with the world that we become who we are. So we become who we are because of the nature of the interactions in which we are involved. I mean, think of the young child. They are hungry to find out about things. They will interact with everything that they possibly can. And they learn about things by interacting in an embodied way, mainly to start with anyway. So we are who we are because of the way we have interacted with the world. So it follows that any aspect of our human nature which affords interaction with the world is very important, because that's where we come from, that's where it contributes to our nature. And quite certainly our embodied nature affords interaction, and therefore it should be valued in the same way as other forms of interaction. So it's valuable philosophically from an existentialist point of view. Then an even worse word, phenomenology. Phenomenology is very concerned with monism and is concerned with interaction, but it is particularly concerned with perception. And phenomenologists believe that on account of our experiences, we perceive the world in a particular way. So we each see the world differently because we come with a package of different experiences. And many of our experiences involve our embodied nature. And we actually see and interpret the world, we perceive the world from a position of being embodied. There is work being done on something called enactivism, on the essentially embodied existence, and phenomenologists lay great stress on our embodied nature, and they say that perception is a motor activity. Now, in a way, I've blinded you with all the big words. You'll find in the book it is spelled out a little bit more simply than I've managed to do this evening. But what I found in the philosophies are enormous respect and appreciation of the enormous value of physical activity because of our nature as human beings. So here was me with a passion and thinking, now, how can I persuade people that I've got something worthwhile? So I found music to my ears. I found monism. It's not second-rate. It's an important element of being human. It helps us to interact. It makes us be who we are. And all our perceptions are colored by our physical presence in the world. And I think that this gives me the confidence to speak to you and the confidence to write, because I do genuinely feel it is of huge value. And I despair when I see humans neglecting, rejecting this element, this aspect, this capability. We're losing something which is very precious indeed, if we don't respect our physical being. So, I just want us to dwell for a little while on human flourishing. So I've talked about the practical aspects on the sheet, fairly straightforward. And I've talked about the whole scene in philosophy. So now I want to go into the middle ground, not the everyday practical, not the grand overview, but the contribution to life as a whole. The contribution to life as a whole. And IPLA have been doing some work in human flourishing just recently, and it's proving a very fertile area. It's hugely fascinating looking at human flourishing, And I think it's well worth having in our armory of justifying physical activity. So what is human flourishing? What am I talking about? Right, so what is human flourishing? It's described as living a rich and rewarding life with the opportunity and freedom to develop chosen aspects of human nature to which a person attaches intrinsic value. Living a rich and rewarding life, human flourishing, where you have the opportunity and the freedom to develop chosen aspects of human nature to which a person attaches intrinsic value. I wonder if you can just think as you sit there, what aspects of your life would you consider help to make your life rich, help to enable you to flourish? What is it that you choose and value? I believe, I'm surprised if we're not all flourishing sitting in this room, but we do have the freedom, we do have the opportunity to develop certain aspects. Why is my life flourishing? I think because of my passion for physical literacy and my interest in reading and writing and presenting to you. I have a balanced life with a whole range of activities. I enjoy my garden, I enjoy friends, I like taking part in physical activity, I like doing crosswords puzzles. I value those things, and I think I flourish because I have a wide range. And all the things that I value in the way that I see my human flourishing is building on a human potential. I have the potential, and I follow it up. Hugely rewarding. And I think we could all talk about why we flourish. So I just want to ask you two questions. What aspects of human flourishing suggest that physical literacy can make a contribution? Is this concept going to welcome physical literacy into its fold? And what's the key to physical literacy contributing to human flourishing? So two questions. Now, the first answer to the first question is, on what grounds could we say that physical literacy makes a contribution to human flourishing? Well, because it's part of our human nature. We are developing part of our human nature. Take the definition that I gave you to start with, and it's because it's part of our human nature. So I think that we're fairly secure on that. We are essentially moving beings, and in all sorts of ways. Then, also in the definition, it suggests that these are chosen by the person. That human flourishing is unique to you. You select it. So there's not a blueprint that we must all do this to flourish, because it's what you value and what you do. And that's the same with physical literacy. There's no one blueprint of having physical literacy or making progress on your journey. You're all different. So I think that we stand alongside human flourishing because we share the chosen, our selection, and we share it as a personal attribute. So I think that we're fairly safe on those grounds. So I think we can make a case in that way. And then finally, I looked at the word value. Again, I think there's congruence between human flourishing on that definition and physical literacy, because you will see from the definition that it's choosing physical activity for life, And it's valuing and taking responsibility that we value physical activity and we take responsibility for commitment throughout life. So I believe that we can legitimately say we make a contribution. We are happily part of of human flourishing because we share many of the aspects, part of human nature. It's chosen, it's particular to you, and also it's important that you value it. Now, somebody who's also written about this is Martha Nussbaum, and she says, human flourishing is a striving to achieve a life that includes all activities to which a person has decided to attach intrinsic value. Reading about human flourishing is absolutely fascinating, but that is what it says there. So I think we can claim Pregnancy is valuable and it has potential to contribute to human flourishing. Part of human nature, unique, chosen, valued, etc. So what must we make sure happens in order to reap the benefit of being part of human flourishing? We can only contribute if we value and then choose to do it. Unless we value it, unless we choose, it's not going to play a part in our flourishing. And ask the question, why do you choose it and why do you value it? It's a problem with being a philosopher. You have to keep asking questions. And the answer was, lost it now, I believe it's because of the meaningful experiences we have. I think having meaningful experiences is what triggers us to value physical activity and therefore to choose it. So I want to think about meaningful experiences. What do I mean by meaningful experiences? We could have a nice seminar on that, couldn't we? What's meaningful to me? See if these things are meaningful to you. They're meaningful to me because I realize my potential. They bring out something in me. They mean something to me. They affirm my self-actualization. They underwrite what I am. They're meaningful because they resonate with other needs and interests. They're pleasurable, they're rewarding, they're satisfying, they develop my self-confidence, and they provide me with opportunities for choice. I think in a nutshell, that's probably what I see as meaningful. And I believe that meaningfulness is also the trigger to our commitment to physical activity for life. If the experiences are meaningful, if they are rewarding, we value them and we choose them. So meaningful experiences are very, very important. So, right. If they're meaningful in any of the ways that I've talked about or ones that we can talk about, you value them. If you value them, you choose them, and then that enhances human flourishing. Similarly, in physical literacy, meaningful experiences are valued, chosen, and establish physical literacy. So the challenge is, how can we make physical activity experiences meaningful for everyone so that they value, choose, and develop a more secure disposition to physical literacy, physical activity? I think that meaningfulness is a word we need to think about. So let's think about them, because we're now going to finish up by talking about how. So how are we going to promote it? And so in the back of my mind, as I had worked through the human flourishing and the importance of meaningfulness, was, okay, I've done a lot of work on the implications. And this is something that Nigel will pick up as well. The challenge is, we've got 35 children, adults in the class. How can we make this experience meaningful to each of them? It's a huge challenge, but this is what we need to do. They can all engage or develop their self-esteem. An amazing goal. So I think that I've said to that, providing meaningful experiences. I've done why. How can we foster physical literacy? How can we make it meaningful? How can we empower individuals to choose physical activity for life? So we're now on to the last bit, which is the how. So we know about what it is. We've got 3 reasons for why it's valuable, practical things, because it can contribute to human flourishing, and because of it fulfills some of the expectations and beliefs philosophically. So I believe when we look at how are we going to promote physical literacy, I think we should look at what we teach, how we teach pedagogy, the nature of the interpersonal relationships between the practitioner and the participant, and what strategies do we use to chart progress. Now, remembering we're going to try and make this meaningful, but let's just slip through them, which will give Nigel a leg up when he meets you later on. So let's look at what we teach. I believe that it is highly desirable that we should embrace a range of physical activities. So not just swimming, not just competitive sport, not just gymnastics. You will see in the book we talk about different movement forms, and I think we need to give them the opportunity to experience a range of movement forms. However, I contradict myself when I say I'm not keen on taster sessions. I'm sorry about that, and I know some people believe in taster sessions. We'll do 2 weeks of badminton and 2 weeks of sailing and 2 weeks of yoga. I'm sorry, I'm not sure if I'm going to develop my motivation and confidence and physical competence in 2 weeks. I'm sorry about that, but I have yet to be persuaded. I would like to see a range of movement forms done for 10 or 12 weeks, so people can really get a feel for the nature of the activity and begin to know how to relate, how to move, etc., etc. So in what to teach, a range, please, but give them enough time to develop their confidence. And finally, in what you teach, the material of the lesson that you're going to work on needs to be within the grasp of the people who are you working with. And quite often they're of mixed ability, and so you have to be very imaginative with your differentiation. So the tasks are challenging for all, not too challenging so that they are demotivating, and they're not insufficiently challenging so that the more able get bored. So what you teach is very important. It has to be pitched at the right level. So how to teach is the second one. How are you going to teach? You'll be cross with me when I say this, if I'm talking to you as teachers. Will you kick me out if I say I want you to teach pupils, not lessons. Do you think there's any value in what I've said? How do you take that? Are you shocked? Do you think it's quite a good idea? I believe we should respond to the children, the learners. We don't have to teach the lesson as the lesson. How do we do that? Well, clearly you're going to have a goal for a package of lessons, whether it's 6 or 12. You've got a goal. And you can gather a cluster of exercises or practices or mini games or challenges on rock climbing. And you've got this pool of ideas. You know where you're going, you plan broadly where you're going, and then you set off with the children, you set off with the learners, and you read them. They'll tell you whether you're doing something which is within their range or not. And you may have to change what you had thought you might cover in the first 2 or 3 lessons. I think as I'm speaking, probably, I know I'm speaking to experienced teachers, and I think that a lot of you do that already. Because you've got in your experience a whole range of activities and small-sided games or different challenges in the swimming pool or different motifs you can develop in dance. You can bring them out. It's more difficult for trainees. But I sometimes worry that in the UK and in some parts of Europe, people are writing books of lessons. I don't teach lessons, I teach children. So you might want to pick me up on that one. How do you teach again? You interact with individuals. You want to actually engage individuals. You want to give them appropriate feedback. You want to use differentiation, as I've mentioned. And I think that if we want them to develop responsibility, we have to give them some responsibility. So there's problem solving and discovery, learning, there's creativity, there's pupil voice, I'm sure you've heard about that, in planning curriculum and lessons. Engage them. Because when you as a teacher, if you are a teacher, when they leave the school or leave your oversight, they've got to decide what to do. They've got to set goals and make plans. So that's a little bit about how you teach. I'll say, good luck, thank you. Right. You can see I'm getting all passionate and I'm cricking this thing without knowing. So interpersonal relationships, really, really important. If I want the individual to have a meaningful experience, I need to know their name, I need to know their experience, I need to know their interests and their passions. Know the pupils, relate to them as individuals, and value and respect them as individuals. Establish productive interpersonal relationships. Be positive, be encouraging, use praise as appropriate. There's a warm, a can-do feeling about it. I believe you can do it. And if the teacher believes the child can do it, my goodness, the child can do it. So no self-fulfilling prophecies as far as the less able. So this has got to be really meaningful, really sensitive, empathetic, enjoyment of relating to everybody. So finally, how are you going to judge progress? One thing I like to challenge people with is that if you're going to do any assessment or if you're going to do any judgment, what I would like to think is your assessment is a motivational tool. It's a motivational tool. How can you make your assessment motivate each individual child? Can you do it? Of course you can. Because what you're looking for is you're looking for the progress that that child has made. I'm not going to compare one person with another. That's irrelevant. We're differently endowed. So we've got this individual on their journey, and with guidance, hopefully, we can help each one to progress. So there's no comparison in the system that I would advocate. Everyone's on a unique journey, and if you've heard of the word ipsative, it's assessment against previous performance. So I would recommend ipsative. And if we are going to judge physical literacy and progress, remember that we're going to look at affective elements, we're going to look at the physical elements, and we're going to look at the cognitive elements. But please try and make any assessment a motivational tool. Can we do it? I think you can. All right. So, speeding through, we've covered what, we've covered why, we've covered how. And you take over from here. It's in your hands. You can make a difference. You can promote physical literacy. You can enhance human flourishing, and you can change lives for the better. You can. With physical literacy, you can make a significant contribution to the flourishing of every individual. Good luck.
Algumas perguntas da plateia. A primeira dela é do Michael, que é do Centro de Pesquisas da Universidade de São Paulo, e ele pergunta: uma de suas afirmações é que a escolha da atividade física para a vida é, em última instância, de responsabilidade de cada pessoa. Mas as experiências pelo mundo mostram que uma política de Estado bem elaborada e articulada é crucial para favorecer esta escolha. Dessa forma, o que poderia dizer sobre a importância do ambiente, do contexto para essa escolha?
I believe that everybody has the right to develop their physical potential. And they need to have the facilities and the opportunity to take part, because I think it's a basic human right. If you read Martha Nussbaum, that's what she talks about. And of course, it depends on there being facilities, on there being trained coaches, leisure managers, teachers. It depends on wise provision so that people can travel there. I think you're absolutely right, the person who asked the question. I could be passionate about taking part, but if the facilities are not provided, if there is no corporate commitment in a town, in a country, if physical activity is not valued in a country, then they're not going to spend their money. So it really is a challenge for us. We have to argue for the importance. We have to try and influence the way money is spent. I think some countries are better than others. I think it's probably somewhere in Scandinavia where if they're building a new village, they start with some form of physical activity provision as one of the things they start with. For younger children, for older adults, etc. They start with that because it's so important. You will find in the back of the book, when you read it, that I have listed all the things that we need to do in order to promote physical literacy, including working hard to have appropriate facilities so that, in fact, we have the opportunity to choose. If we don't have the opportunity to choose, we're not going to get there. You're absolutely right that I could have a very secure disposition, but I can't express it. So yes, that is a hurdle. Quite right.
A próxima pergunta é do Marcos, também do Centro de Pesquisa da USP, e ele quer saber: podemos dizer que as atividades físicas e esportivas, quando são um fim em si mesmas, acabam por valorizar mais as escolhas do praticante?
I'm not quite sure I heard that. Can you say it again? Can you ask me again?
O Marcos quer saber se podemos dizer que as atividades físicas e as atividades esportivas, quando são um fim em si mesmas e não um meio para atingir outro objetivo, elas valorizam mais as escolhas do praticante?
Physical activity is such a rich aspect of our being that, in fact, it can answer a whole range of needs. But I think if you really do see it as an end in itself, in expression of your being, expression of your humanness, a development of your potential, I'm not quite sure I'm answering the question. I think that does motivate you even more than when it's a means to other ends. I think that if you really can see for yourself the intrinsic value for yourself, I think that is the strongest situation to be in. I must talk to you because I'm not quite sure I've answered your question. Anyway, go on.
A próxima pergunta, a pessoa não se identificou, mas a pergunta é: quais as diferenças entre florescimento pessoal e desenvolvimento pessoal, de acordo com os conceitos que a senhora colocou na fala?
What's the difference between personal flourishing and personal development? I think you flourish partly because you grow and you develop. So I think they go hand in hand. If you look at flourishing, if you are flourishing, you are developing. You belong to a drama group and you flourish because you try different parts, you have different plays you're in, or you perhaps sing or you dance. You develop your repertoire, and that's rewarding and fulfilling. So I think that development and flourishing go hand in hand.
O Will, da Hens, pergunta: como construir experiências corporais significativas num contexto de vida ditado pela era digital?
Right, you've got a challenge, haven't you? We need to inspire and engage people in a range of activities. This is very difficult because what we choose to do is not always our own choice. There's peer pressure, there's family commitment, family interests, or families who have particular rules and regulations about how much screen time they have and how they don't. We've got to inspire them to want to take part, and this is where the PE teacher is so important, because this is the only time in their life when all young people in their life pattern will be involved in some form of physical activity. Will be involved in some form of physical activity led by a knowledgeable, qualified, able teacher. The significant others that are involved in this physical journey are many and various, but you as qualified physical education teachers bring something very special. You bring all your experience and knowledge. And this is where I think our role is just so important, because if we don't capture their imagination, then I'm not quite sure how they'll do it. It really needs to have opportunity, facilities, encouragement from parents, encouragement from other people, encouragement from significant others in school. And I believe if you can just capture that special thing about really involvement and invigorating participation, I think you'll want to come back for more. I think you'll want to come back for more. I do hope that we can make a difference, because I think that the narrow nature of the experience from screen time, and sometimes the frightening effects of screen time and all the, I've got 4 grandsons, the games they play and the battles and everything, I find it very frightening. I'm lucky because all of my 4 grandsons are passionate about sport, so they aren't around to have screen time. It doesn't help, does it? It doesn't help. They snack while they're screen time. I think it's a real worry. I haven't got the answer. All I can say is, if we have the opportunity to inspire them, to find something that they can really identify with and grow in self-respect, they'll come back for more.